Hey, what's up, guys? My name's Alexis Sargent, and I'm a senior at South Forsyth High School. If you don't know me, you might know one of my sisters. I have two sisters, one who's a junior, Delaney, and Keely, who's a sophomore. For as long as I can remember, we've always been inseparable, and we've been the Sargent sisters. Being super close in age, you can only imagine the amount of trouble we got into as kids. Because believe it or not, we might have been the most mischievous kids ever. For example, growing up, we watched a lot of movies, and we'd always pick characters. Or being the oldest, I would just tell them who they had to be. And we'd pretend we were those characters. We were also really liked the movie Tarzan and decided to try to be like him. So we took sheets and we tied them to the balcony and then swung from the bottom through the foyer. We'd always wait to do things like this until we knew both of our parents were busy. And it was all fun and games until our mom found us doing it and started to hide all the sheets. So we had to get creative and started using vacuum cords and backing those up to the banister. We were also obsessed with H2O and we wanted to be mermaids. So we went to our parents' bathroom, and we took a cup upside down to plug the drain, and then just stood there waiting for the shower to fill like a pool or aquarium type thing, I guess. And luckily, we got the water to make it to our hips, and luckily for our parents, our little experiment had flooded the entire pantry. That's just a few of the crazy things we did as kids, but one super embarrassing thing our mom did was pretend we were triplets and dress us identical all the time. Like literally, we'd have to tell people we weren't triplets. And so I brought some pictures to prove to y'all. Really cute. I've never been big into sports, and I did track and field in middle school and lacrosse in high school. I have a tendency to be accident prone though, so that lasted a whole half a season. After that, I decided to invest a lot of my time in a church, and I've been super involved in Stone Creek ever since. You can find me in Stone Creek Kids, or Rise on Sunday mornings, shout out to my 7th graders, because y'all are awesome. Wake every Wednesday, or somewhere around Stone Creek just hanging with friends. I love this place, and I can't imagine where I'd be today without it. The people here have given me a place to belong, and have shown me a love unlike any other. My small group and the friends I've made here have forever impacted my life. So when Sean called me in April, asked me to do my yearbook, I literally remember my heart dropping. I remember sitting on the phone saying over and over to myself, Alexis, you can't do that. You can't stand on a stage in front of all your friends and share your story. I think I literally sat in silence for 30 seconds debating if I should say yes. My biggest fear is public speaking. So how was I going to get up and talk in front of all of you? It took me realizing that the fear I was feeling wasn't from the Lord, but it was from Satan. Jesus had written me a beautiful story that could reach so many people, and Satan didn't want me to share it. It took me realizing that my story isn't my own, but it's Jesus's. It took me saying to myself, Alexis, Jesus has done amazing things in your life, and who are you to say you're not going to share it? So I'm super thankful I said yes, and I'm up here sharing. I was born and raised in Georgia, and I have two sisters, as I mentioned before. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad works in the hotel industry. So growing up, I always thought it was super cool whenever we got to help open a hotel, which really only consisted of us running around the entire hotel, restocking toilet paper and soap. But I still told my friends I was cool because I worked at a hotel. And for as long as I've known, church has always been a constant in my life. My parents were Christians before I was born, so I literally felt like I was born into the church. We went on Sundays and Wednesdays. We attended Christian preschool and went to lots of VBS every summer. Anyone else go to VBS? Just me. Did anyone? Our parents would read Bible stories, and the only car radio station I even thought existed was The Fish. Sure, I was super involved in church and everything Jesus, but it was more as if I adopted my parents' faith and never really branched out to make my faith my own. This was until my 5th grade year. We went to our no more VBS. But something was different. I felt bored with the normal stories and wanted something better. So on Thursday, our pastor asked the older kids to stay behind, and he gave a message on how without Jesus, we're unclean. And he used the analogy of water. This was super exciting for me because all I ever knew were Bible stories and songs with hand motions. But this was something deeper, and I finally saw the meaning behind Christianity. That Jesus died for me and that I was a child of God. After he spoke, he gives the opportunity to accept Jesus as our Savior, and without even thinking, my feet were walking to the front. I knew in that moment, I wanted Jesus to be my king and rule my life. I got saved, and later that year, I got baptized with my two sisters at our church. While yes, I knew Jesus, I wasn't personally investing myself in an intimate relationship with him. I continued to let pastors spiritually feed me instead of looking for answers on my own. Life was still good up to this point, though. I had great parents, great friends, I actually liked school, and I thought I had the perfect family. From the outside looking in, my life seemed great. Sure, I had a few bumps and valleys, but at this point in my life, most of it was mountains, and I hadn't experienced anything that big. That was until 7th grade, when everything I thought I knew came crashing down, and my life completely shifted. Growing up, I never liked change, and stayed in my comfortable bubble and refused to let anything out of my control happen. But the next few years of my life were going to be out of my control, and that's something I wasn't okay with. I started to notice my parents were fighting, and at first I was like, this might be normal. But then it got a little worse, and after a few things happened one day, my mom got us from school and sat us down. She told us she was going to get a divorce, and there would be some court hearings for custody. We wouldn't be seeing my dad for a while, but this was super confusing because it never crossed my mind that my perfect little family would ever change. My home life situation changed, and instead of turning to Jesus, I tried to find comfort in earthly things that I thought would help and ease the pain I was feeling. I bottled everything up and refused to talk to anyone. Most of it without being hurt by dysfunction, but if I'm being honest, a lot of it was caused by feelings of abandonment and self-worth. Since my home environment was constantly changing, and we were moving from friends' houses to shelters and all in between, I'd get embarrassed when my friends would ask to have sleepovers at my house. I would lie to avoid the reality that was now my life. So to add on to that, the summer after 7th grade, my mom decided to move churches, and honestly, I just didn't want to. I was already struggling with adjusting to the changes in my family dynamics, so I wasn't ready to start over a whole new church with all new people. At first, I literally refused to go. It was mostly because I was comfortable with the small group I already had, and I didn't see why stepping into the unknown would do me any good. One Sunday, something clicked, and I decided to give this whole new church a try. That's when I came to Stone Creek for the first time. Immediately we walked in, we were greeted by literally everyone, and that's when this tall guy with a faux hawk came up and was like, yo, I'm Joey. In my 13-year-old mind, I'm thinking, who's this crazy guy talking to my mom and sisters? Eventually I clued in, it was the student pastor, and this is strange for me because at my previous church, I only imagined meeting our student pastor because it was really big. Towards the end of the conversation, he tells me I'm going on the escape and that him and my mom were just gonna sign me up that day. I was like, you're joking. I just walked in, and you think I'm gonna go on a beach retreat for 4 days with people I don't know. That's a no. Well, to my luck, my mom got the final say and told me I was going. Keep in mind, the retreat was like the next week. I was terrified to go and honestly had so many uncertainties. The first day of the retreat, when I walked in, the small group leader yelled, hey, I'm Rakaya. Who are you? And seconds later, this bright-eyed blue girl jumps in front of me, helps me grab all my stuff, and is like, hey, I'm Ivy, and we're gonna be friends. That's when I knew everything was gonna be okay, and I might actually have fun. And then I'd have to tell Joey and my mom that they were right. So I hung out with the girls in my small group the whole trip, and my plan of running to my sister and sticking to her every chance I got quickly faded. I spent the trip forming friendships that to this day are still some of the people I get the blessing of calling my best friends. For the first time in a while, I felt the community and love I was longing for. That retreat, the main bottom line, was to be known is to be loved, and to be loved is to be known. I literally felt like God was screaming at me, saying, Alexis, that's you. I love you, and everything's gonna be okay. My idea was always that I'm supposed to be reading my Bible and wanting to know more about Jesus. But here he was saying, no, I want to know you, not just as a friend, but as a daughter. And this was insane to me, that the God of the universe wanted to know me. He was chasing after me, and he loved me. He wanted to read my book. The last night after session in small group, without even thinking, I started to share everything I was going through. My feelings, my story, and it was the first time I just felt comfortable with people and so truly loved by God. It was a moment in my life when the way I viewed God completely changed. After that, I decided to plug myself into Stone Creek and get super involved. I started volunteering in Stone Creek Kids, and I actually wanted to stay for Big Church. I'd hang out with my church friends every day, and finally, after searching for acceptance, had found it in Jesus. All it took was completely trusting him with my whole life, and he provided me with the people and tools necessary to feel so loved and accepted. So life was going good, and while I was invested in my relationship with Jesus, I was thrown yet another curveball, when my family started having more issues. I started to struggle with depression and self-worth. I acted like everything was okay, even when it wasn't, and I put on a mask when I was around my friends. I made myself a whole new life at Stone Creek, and I wasn't ready to jeopardize it by telling people I was struggling. So once again, I did what I did best, and I bottled it up. I started to feel like maybe my parents' divorce was all my fault, and I placed the blame on myself. I started to doubt myself and try to take the reins of my life instead of surrendering control to Jesus. I didn't see my worth or value because I was looking in all the wrong places. I tried to find it in friendships and popularity and social media, but eventually, all of these things let me down and left me feeling even more lonely and worthless than before. I started to place blame for my parents' divorce on myself. I started to think, what if it's my fault? I hadn't built my life on Jesus, and so I was crumbling. An analogy I always like to use is to think my life as a house. I have two options. I either build my life on a rock or sand. The sand is the sinking sand we call our life. It's the things that eventually will blow away from water and falter. The rock is Jesus. Rock is strong and mighty, and a house built on rock won't bend or move. From an architect's standpoint, all builders would choose to build their house on the rock. So why is it that we so easily build our house on the sands when the logical choice is the rock? Wouldn't you want to build your house on the best foundation? I continued to struggle for the next couple months because I had chosen to build my foundation on something that wouldn't support me or be the best for my life. I had fallen away from Jesus and not been fully trusting him with every decision. That summer, I went on the escape again, and the message that year was, put Jesus on the throne of your heart. On the retreat and throughout the sessions, I realized that I wasn't putting Jesus on my throne. I thought I was, but when I truly examined my heart and did some soul searching, I found that I cared way more about what others thought about me than what Jesus thought about me. It all came down to the same question: whose approval do I value most? I was putting other things above Jesus. I wasn't pursuing him with everything I had. So the last night in small group, we talked about what was really going on in our lives. We talked about what we thought we'd been placing on our thrones, whether it was idols, popularity, approval from others, sports, or anything you thought to be more valuable than Jesus. That night, I decided I was done trying to fake it till I make it. I was done trying to gain acceptance from others. I was done trying to seek after things that in the end would leave me feeling empty, and I put Jesus on my throne. I decided to make it my mission to lift Jesus' name above all others, and this was a huge moment for me in my faith. After a small group, we each got crowns, and we carried them up a hill and laid them at the cross, symbolizing that we give it all to Jesus. It was a marking moment for me to say, here, Jesus, it's your throne. Take back the reins of my life, rule it, and help me live in such a way that brings all the glory to you. When I truly knew who I was in Christ and started walking with him personally every day, it completely changed me. It was awesome, but soon the friends I thought were going to be here forever, and they were my Christian school friends, turned to partying, and they left me. I felt trapped in a never-ending cycle of bad things. At first, it was just the small things, like not responding to my texts or not inviting me to hang out. But then I started to feel so left out and lonely, I started to feed myself the lies that maybe I'm not good enough. I'd get called prude and innocent, and at first it bothered me so much, but then I realized that I'd rather be labeled as someone who didn't party than someone who did. That's when my perspective changed. I had to learn how to be strong and not fall into temptation of partying. I had to accept the label of good girl, God girl, goody two-shoes, and wear it proudly. Sure, it wasn't easy, because in the moment, those temptations can seem really good. And you can think, if I just do it this once, maybe I won't get caught. But standing here now, I'm so glad I was able to stand strong in my faith. As a result of all my friends leaving, though, I started to feel lonely. And even though I still had a couple friends at church, I could be in a room full of people and still feel all alone. I started with just not being good enough, and all of this brought up my family problems. It made me think, no matter what I did, I would never be good enough. Then after constantly praying for the Lord to intervene in my life, things started to look up for the first time in a while. I got the amazing opportunity to go on my first mission trip to Guatemala, and it completely wrecked my life. And it showed me that even in trials and tribulations, God is always good. On the trip, I met a little boy named Angel, and he was kind of shy at first. Later that week, Jose, the ministry founder, told us that he was going through a lot at home, and some of it was similar to my story. The next day, he was at the ministry, and Jose said he was at court. When he showed up later that day, he was running and laughing and smiling, and this was crazy to my sisters and I. When we went to court, we didn't want to do anything the rest of the day. Yet here we were, watching a little boy who had it way worse than us laugh and radiate joy. His joy showed me that even in times of hardships, we're the ones who determine our outcome. You can either choose to let it get you down and ruin your day, or you can choose to recognize, well, yes, it happened. I'm going to choose to find the hope and joy in the situation. In the midst of my darkness, I'm going to find the light. After that trip, I then got the opportunity to work at a camp we host at Stone Creek called Camp Kidzu, and this is such an amazing opportunity for me. The counselors are amazing, and once again, the community that I longed for was all around me. I met people who actually cared about me and wanted my best interest. God wasn't even close to being done with my life that summer, though. The first week at camp, I met two little girls, Addie and Reagan. If you know them, you know they're the most sweet, loving people you'll ever meet. They can make you laugh in a matter of seconds, and they light up every room they walk into. Towards the end of the summer, I got close to their family, their brother Ethan, and their awesome parents, Denise and Jason. Soon enough, I felt like I was over their house every day, and they started to feel like family. They took me in and treated my sisters and I like their own. They gave me a place to belong. They were in constant pursuit of me. So to the Moores, thank you. The relationship I built with them had reminded me that Jesus is also pursuing me. Jesus is always constant and the solid rock when everything else is falling apart. Sure, life is hard, and I have a lot of responsibility being the oldest, but I want to stand strong in my faith. I don't want to be a hypocrite and party when I say I love Jesus. Knowing that Jesus is in constant pursuit of me helped me because I want to constantly pursue him. Sure, my life isn't perfect, and I'm not going to stand up here and say that following Jesus means you won't have to face anything hard. But since following Jesus, sometimes I doubt myself, but then I realize who I am in him and find my worth and identity. Instead of looking for affirmation in friends or boys or popularity, I turn to the Bible to see what Jesus says about me. Because in the end, that's all that matters. You could have everything you think you could want, but if you don't have Jesus, you'll end up feeling empty and always searching for something more. Trust me, I can still get upset about things, but rather than keeping it to myself and bottling it up, I turn to Jesus. And the people in my life I know will be there for me. 3 big things have really helped me in my walk, and they are prayer, reading my Bible, and journaling. I used to pray only when I was mad or something went wrong, but now I have and want to talk to him. I think of talking to him just as I would my friends. I tell him the good things and the bad things, because when I thought about it, you don't only talk to your friends when something goes wrong. You're in constant conversations with them. You tell them everything. And when I made that person Jesus, he showed me that even though he might not answer every prayer, he's always listening and has a plan for my life bigger than I can even imagine. I used to think the Bible was just a book. But when I truly started reading it and wanting to learn more about Jesus, I developed a faith of my own. This was the book Jesus wrote for us, so why do we struggle reading it? The words of the Bible are the words that can tell us so much more about the person of Jesus, the man who died for us. The Bible is his words, and when I started to read to understand, it completely changed my life. Another big thing that changed the way I walk with Jesus is journaling. It's helped me grow and show me how the Lord's worked in my life. I love being able to write down my thoughts, my prayers, my feelings. Because I think a lot of times I pray for something, but when it's answered, I totally forget that it's Jesus working, and I never even thank him. Writing down my prayers so I can remember them has been amazing to see where God's been working. Since truly following him and involving himself in every aspect of my life, I've started to be more involved in my small group and letting them pour into me instead of just trying to have all the answers. It's okay not to know it all, and it's okay to struggle. It's what you do when you follow that matters. Opening up to my small group leaders and some of the girls in my group has been so amazing. They've been able to keep me accountable and push me to love Jesus. They're there to listen and pour into me so that I'm able to pour into others. Honestly, I could go on and on about all the amazing things Jesus has done to transform my life since putting all my trust in him. One of the biggest things I've noticed is my relationship with my sisters. My sisters and I have always been close, but we were never truly close until we started reading the Bible together. It's crazy to see the relationship and how it's grown just because of Jesus. We can talk and be real because the things we went through together. It's so cool to see what God's done and is going to do through our story. So if you have brothers and sisters, value and cherish that. I used to doubt Jesus in situations, but now I turn to him. In Jeremiah 29:11, it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." About 2 months ago, one of my best friends asked me my favorite verse, and at first I couldn't really think of any that were my favorite. But then for some reason, Jeremiah 29:11 came into mind. At first I was like, that's common and so well known. But I decided to stick with it, and over the past 2 months, God showed me that's exactly the verse I needed to hold on to. These past 2 months haven't been the easiest, and on March 16th, one of my best friends, Ivy, passed away. I took it really hard, and I struggled with seeing how something this tragic could fit into my life and how it could fit into God's plan. I'd read Jeremiah 29:11 over and over. God's plans weren't for harm, but to prosper me. And later that week at her funeral, one of the major verses her mom brought up was Jeremiah 29:11. A month later, I went to Guatemala on another mission trip, and one of the days I was just thinking and feeling down overall. But later that day, I was walking through the park, and on one of the new murals, the bottom said Jeremiah 29:11. It's been crazy to see how much God has planned and incorporated the verse into my life since then. It showed me that Jesus always there. He'll give you the tools necessary to fight the battles you'll go through. It can be as simple as a Bible verse that has so much power. My challenge to you is that you realize you can build your foundation on Jesus rather than on partying and friends, because ultimately, Jesus is better than those things. When you stand firm in your faith, sure, your friends might push you away at first, but then eventually they'll turn to you when they need someone to talk to. My prayer for you, those who struggle with self-worth, is that you find your worth in Jesus. I never found my worth because I was looking at all the wrong things. But when I put my worth in Jesus, everything changed. God is so worthy of everything we have to offer, and we truly start to build a relationship with him through reading our Bibles or prayer. He'll show us that he's always there. It's okay if you don't have all the friends or don't get invited to that party on Friday night, because sometimes Jesus has used that time as an opportunity for growth. My challenge to you is to find your hope and strength in Jesus and don't give in. Stand strong in him and leave it all to him. You have to see that there's more to your path than where you're currently at, and his intentions aren't to hurt you, but to prosper you. I want you to remember to always rely on Jesus, because otherwise you will fall in sync. I now know that Jesus is my rock and my king, and I'm worthy of his kingdom, and that's all that matters. My name is Alexis Sargent, and this is my yearbook.